no. Oh, why do I do this to myself? Why do I waste time playing this stupid game? Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, and welcome to what is probably the weirdest legend push I have ever done in GBL, because I ended up using like 10 different teams that I had never tried before, and somehow it ended up working. We managed to climb and we managed to reach legend. I did not use a single team twice in this legend push, except for the early battles where I was trying a few other teams, but then they stopped working and I got frustrated and I started using whatever. You guys are gonna see my frustrations in this video, but the team that ended up working for me the best is at the end of this video, where we get a 5-0 to make it to legend. Now you might notice that my elo is a lot lower from where I had left off in my previous video, which is where I reached my season high in the 2900s. And that's because after I did really well with that team, the game did this thing where it gives you an entire set of really hard counters after you do really well with a team, and I ended up going 0-5 and losing most of the points that I gained. So that brings us to today's video, where I'm just going to show you guys me going kind of crazy, losing my mind, because I had been at this point playing GBL all day. I got really high into the 2900s and then I dropped, and when you drop, it kind of takes off some of the pressure, because you're like, okay, you know what? I'm just gonna start trying whatever and I'm gonna try to have fun. And when you get into that mindset, you're not as nervous going into your matches. You make less mistakes. However, the team choices are a little bit questionable. I'm gonna let you guys know right now, not all the teams you guys are gonna see in this video are amazing. Like, this first team that I'm running is entirely weak to electric types, and in this match that is going on right now, I get destroyed by a Morpeko. My opponent actually leads Venusaur, and they have a Morpeko in the back, which is really unfortunate for me. However, this triple water team was working really well for me in a lot of the battles that I played. I was using it before, and this is a team that I have used in the past as well. So this team isn't necessarily new. It just takes advantage of the fact that there's not a lot of electric types in the meta at the moment. However, if you do go up against an electric type like this Morpeko, then you might get destroyed. I'm just putting it out there. It's a strong team, but against electric types, it is going to suffer, even against Venusaur, which my opponent had both of them on this team. So I actually don't have a lot of discussion to do at the beginning of this video, because I use like 5 different teams, but as we go along through the video, I will point out the weaknesses and the advantages of each team. So with that being said, let's just jump into the battles. In this match, we're up against a Walrein on the lead, and I managed to catch the Earthquake onto my Azu, which is pretty good. I need to draw out whatever the water types are going to be weak to in the back. However, it looks like my opponent has a Toxapex. You see, my opponents are also not respecting electric types. I talked about this yesterday, but because they're not that common, you're going to run into teams that might be weak to them. Again, electric types are scared away at the moment because of how common Clodsire, Dunsparce, and Mudslap users are, so you won't see a lot of them. Oh, okay, my opponent is actually running triple weak to electric like we are, but this is not good for me because my Toxapex is not going to do much to this Drifblim. I'm not sure if I win this. I think this is going to be a loss. I'm gonna let Toxapex go here, and then I'm gonna bring in Feraligatr. Unfortunately, my opponent reaches a Shadow Ball, and I have to shield here. This will one-shot, I think, but they also have a Sludge Wave on Toxapex, so I have to shield that as well. I'm gonna go for a Hydro Cannon here because this will KO, and my opponent's final Pokemon is that Walrein, but it has 2 shields, and this is not looking good for me. So I'm gonna have to take an Earthquake here. This will one-shot us, and Azu is not gonna be able to do anything here. So I'm gonna go ahead and top left. Now here you're gonna see me queue up, but then I changed my mind. I end up doing this a lot in this video, but I decide I want to run a different team. So whenever a team stops working for me, I just go ahead and change it up. I really don't feel like also running the same team anymore because at this point I've played so many battles during the day and I'm getting bored. So the next team I decide to go with is Toxapex on the lead with Pangoro and Guzzlord on the safe swap. Now, what's the issue with this team? Well, it's going to be ABA week to Alolan Sandslash, and my idea was I would draw the fairy type out with Guzzlord. However, in most cases, that's not what was happening. Guzzlord was drawing out an ice type, and that's not what I wanted because Pangoro was going to be good against those ice types. So it really didn't do what I needed it to do. But in this match, we were up against a Wigglytuff on the lead, and thank goodness my opponent stayed in. If my opponent knew I had Guzzlord and Pangoro in the back, they probably would have saved that Wigglytuff. Luckily, we're able to take it out. I am going to be able to align my Toxapex to their Poliwrath, and then hopefully my Pangoro should be able to take care of their Drifblim. Now, both of us have 2 shields left, and unfortunately for me, I am going to get debuffed. I take the first Icy Wind. I don't think I should have. I think I should be able to make it to 4 Night Slashes. I'm not sure, before they reach a 3rd Icy Wind. But I'm going to start going for these Night Slashes. My opponent is shielding, and it's getting a little bit tough here, but I have a lot of energy on my Toxapex, so I'm going to bring it in, go for 2 Brines. My opponent has no shields left, and I have a Night Slash ready on my Pangoro. I just needed to make sure that the Night Slash would KO, which is why I swapped out also to clear the debuff. But now I can go for that Night Slash, take my opponent out, and we actually managed to take that win with a really unbalanced team. Now, I don't recommend this team at all, but these battles contributed to my legend push, so I'm going to leave them in here. Now, the next battle is going to be pretty much straight RPS because we lead Toxapex into their Talonflame, and then my opponent swaps into a Ferrothorn. And actually, I am ABA good against the Talonflame, so I don't really need to win Switch here. I'm going to go for a close combat. They give me Switch anyways, which is good. And their final Pokemon is going to be a Gastrodon. Okay, so I actually did need to switch because this Gastrodon would destroy my Toxapex, but I have Guzzlord aligned to their Gastrodon now. I'm going to go for these Brutal Swings. We both have a shield left, and I'm going to go ahead and shield here. I should be able to take it out with the Dragon Tails, yes, and have a little bit of energy for this Talonflame. My opponent is going to have to throw a move on our Guzzlord to take us out. They can't incinerate us down, but I'm able to reach 2 Brutal Swings. I think this next one will take their final shield, and I can take the energy here on Guzzlord and then bring in my Toxapex, which should be able to Poison Jab this Talonflame down. Hopefully they don't make it to a Fly and a Brave Bird, which is what they need to take us out. Actually, from this range, I don't even think a Brave Bird would have been enough, but we're able to take their Talonflame out, take that win, and that is going to be a positive set, getting us to 2,899 ELO, which is 101 points away from Legend, but we can still do this. It's still possible. I just need to find one team that is going to do really well for me. Now, moving on to the next set, I decide to go with the same team again, and then I get really hard countered in this match. We were up against a Gastrodon on the lead, and when I bring in Guzzlord, my opponent swaps in a Dugong, and this is where I realized this team is definitely not going to work. If people are running this team composition, then it's really, really tricky. Interesting that my opponent is running Gastrodon and Dugong. Well, it makes sense because Gastrodon is going to be weak to Flyers and Dugong is going to be really good against Flyers. So unfortunately, I have to take the Drill Run on my Toxapex because I didn't want to take the energy on Pangoro. I wanted to keep Pangoro healthy, and my opponent's final Pokemon is going to be a Flyer with Aerial Ace. So we got basically hard countered, even though Pangoro can do pretty well against Mandibuzz. I'm still gonna lose this. Their Gastrodon is still very healthy. My opponent even calls the Night Slash here and they let it go on their Mandibuzz. I'm able to go for a close combat, but they saved 2 shields for this Gastrodon. So at this point, I'm not gonna be able to do anything against it. They go ahead and shield our Brine, but I need 2 close combats here and I have no shields left. So this Earth Power is really going to hurt our Pangoro. They even have a Body Slam ready to go. So I'm just going to go ahead and top left. There was no way I was going to win that. So at this point, I decide it's time to switch up the team again, and I thought I could put Serperior on the lead because I was seeing a lot of leads that were weak to grass types. I was seeing Azu, Gastrodon, even Marowak. But then I remembered, if I get an ice type on the lead, again, I am ABA weak to ice types. So I put Ferrothorn on the lead here, and then I put Feraligatr in the back, but then I was like, oh wait, this entire team is weak to Pangoro. If I run into one Pangoro, my team can absolutely get destroyed. So I kept changing the Pokemon and trying to figure out, okay, what can I put, what can I put, what can I put? In the end, I decided Scizor lead with Shadow Dragonite, and again, Guzzlord on the safe swap. If Guzzlord draws out the ice type in this case, I should be good. And Scizor should be able to do pretty well against most of the ice types that are in the meta. I am going to be running it with Night Slash and Trailblaze, so Scizor will be able to take care of those fairy types, which my backline is going to be weak to. And yeah, the backline should be able to take care of the fire types, which we see in the first match that I play with this team. A Talonflame on the lead. I am so lucky here, but I'm going to let whatever this is go. They go for a fly, and then they bring in a chestnut. Okay, so my opponent had to throw the Frenzy Plant before I could reach a Sludge Bomb. I'm gonna bring in Scizor now, and I go for a Night Slash. I probably should have gone for a Trailblaze, but I need to take this out before they can reach a move. They make it to a move, however, and I let it go. It is a superpower. We live with 1 HP, and I'm just hoping that my Dragonite is going to be able to take this win for us with 2 shields. And it looks like I might have a chance because my opponent's final Pokemon is a Morpeko, and they're going to be able to reach 2 Psychic Fangs, but they shouldn't be able to reach a 3rd one. And their Talonflame is pretty weak in the back. I should be able to Dragon Breath it down here. My opponent recognizes this, and they go ahead and top left, and we're able to take the win there. Moving on to the next match, we're going to be up against an opponent that also sees potential in Scizor. However, they're running Fury Cutter and we are running Bullet Punch. I'm going to go for a Night Slash here. We take a shield from my opponent. I'm going to go ahead and mirror the shield, but they will be able to beat us to the next Night Slash. And at this point, I decide to let it go. I know that I can survive, and I make it to another one. Hopefully this lands and we can almost take their Scizor out. We're able to take them out. Okay, my opponent brings in a Goodra. I immediately swap into my Guzzlord, and thankfully, since they're staying in, I have a feeling my Dragonite is going to be really good in the back. I still have a shield left for it, so I should be good. And we take our opponent's final shield with the Brutal Swing. My opponent was probably expecting a Dragon Claw, and their final Pokemon is going to be a Quagsire. This is so good for me. I can come in with Dragonite here and shield whatever this is because I know that my opponent isn't going to make it to an Aqua Tail and a Stone Edge, but I will have enough energy to reach a Dragon Claw. My opponent recognizes this. They go ahead and they top left, and we're going to take another win with this weird team. Moving on to the next battle, we were up against a Shadow Marowak on the lead, and I swapped out into Guzzlord, and we draw out a Dugong. Okay, this match ends up being super close. I could have won this if my Scizor would just survive one more Mud Slap from their Marowak. I think I should have gone ahead and shielded the Drill Run here, but I go for a full farm down against their Dugong. I have a lot of energy stored up on that Scizor, and my opponent's final Pokemon is going to be an Ariados. So technically, our Dragonite should be able to handle both of the Pokemon that they have left, but Ariados is going to be debuffing us, which is really unfortunate, which means these Dragon Breaths are going to hurt a lot less. We could have taken them out with the Dragon Breaths if I hadn't been debuffed, but I'm going to be able to go for a superpower up against this Marowak. They are going to take us out with a Bone Club, and even though I have 2 Night Slashes loaded up here, my opponent is going to be able to take us out with the Mud Slap, and we aren't going to be able to take that win. But if I hadn't been debuffed on Dragonite, it would have been a different situation. Also, if my Scizor was a little bit more healthy, I could have won that. Still a close match. But anyways, moving on to the next battle, we're going to be up against an Azu on the lead. This is such a good lead for us, but I am going to have to shield up the move that they're going to throw because I can't let my backline see this Azu. However, I get a boost. Oh, no, never mind. I went for a Trailblaze. I thought I got a Night Slash boost for some reason. I went for a Trailblaze, which is a guaranteed attack boost. And my opponent almost made it to another move, so I had to throw the Night Slash. I think I threw it on CMP tie. We take the Azu out, and then they bring in a Diggersby. And I managed to take a shield from them and then swap into my Guzzlord. With the Azu out of the way, I'm gonna assume that my opponent doesn't have another answer to Dragon types in the back. Hopefully they don't, but I think my opponent might have a poison type in the back. I was expecting maybe a Toxapex because Toxapex and Diggersby go really well together, but my opponent has a Toxicroak in the back running Poison Jab, which is really hurting my Dragonite, but my opponent goes ahead and top lefts here, and we're able to take that win. So a really weird team to run into on that last match, but we managed to get a positive set with a really weird team. This was the most interesting team I ran that night, and we make it to 2,915 elo with this team. I should also point out that the teams I was running into were really weird in that set. Probably has to do with the algorithm, I'm not sure, but I'm running a weird team, so I started seeing weird teams. All right, the next team I'm going to use is Ariados lead with 2 water types in the back. Again, I am running that Azu and Shadow for Alligator backline. And you might notice that my elo jumped a bit. There is a set that I got a 4-1 in that I didn't record, but for the most part, I was using this team that you guys are seeing on the screen at the moment. I also, I got some tanking legends in that set, so there wasn't anything interesting really happening. I just got really lucky and I got a couple of free wins. But anyways, moving on to this match, we are going to be up against a Feraligatr on the lead, and I went for a Trailblaze against a Feraligatr and took a shield from them, and then I swapped out into Azu and I draw out a Clodsire. Okay, I take the Earthquake from the Clodsire because I wanna save my final shield for my Feraligatr. I still have no idea what my opponent has in the back. They have a Drapion. I'm really hoping here I don't get the debuff, but I do, which is really annoying. I think if I didn't get the debuff, I could have won this. The debuff gives my opponent the win. I'm gonna go for a crunch here up against their Feraligatr, take them out, and I'm not able to farm their Clodsire down. They make it to a move against my Ariados, and they are able to take us out. If I had just not gotten that debuff, my Feraligatr would have had a little bit of extra health, and I would have been able to Shadow Claw their Clodsire down. So really annoying, but still very close. Anyways, moving on to the next battle, we're up against a Morpeko on the lead, which my team is kind of entirely weak to. But I let the Aura Wheel go on my Ariados, and I actually survive. I make it to that lunge, and I get a shield from them. Okay, then I bring in Azu, thinking that my opponent has, because they're in Hangry mode, they have the Dark type move and Psychic Fangs, but they are running Seed Bomb, which is so unfortunate for me. And I just let Azu go here. Let's see what my plan is. Okay, so I have 2 shields for Feraligatr. Maybe I can take this win with Feraligatr. We're gonna have to see. I think I can go for a full farm down against that Morpeko, but my opponent swaps out into Talonflame. This Hydro Cannon is gonna one-shot, and my opponent's final Pokemon is a Goodra. I don't have Ice Beam for this Goodra, so I go for a Hydro Cannon, and then I go for a Crunch. It is enough to take them out, and I just need one more Poison Jab up against this Morpeko to take them out, and somehow we actually managed to take that win, even after like completely letting go of Ariados and Azu. Feraligatr was able to sweep that entire team for us. Moving on to the next match, we're up against a Wigglytuff on the lead, which is a really good lead for me. I just cannot have the Wigglytuff aligned to my Feraligatr because it is going to be resisting the Shadow Claws. So my opponent swaps out into Dunsparce, and I decide to stay in just so that I could debuff them with the lunge and also get them a little bit weaker. That way I can ensure that my Azu is going to be able to win switch. However, my opponent swaps out of their Dunsparce. They have very little HP, but I think they have a move stored, and they swap out into Wigglytuff. As soon as my switch timer comes up, I bring my Ariados back in. I'm able to go for a Trailblaze here, expecting that Dunsparce to come back in and go for the move immediately, but they don't. Okay, their final Pokemon is an Altaria. let's see how this goes. I decide to bring in Feraligatr up against this Altaria because I want to weaken it, or I want to get some shields out of the way. That way I can potentially land an Ice Beam from my Azu. So I build up to an Ice Beam on Feraligatr, take a shield from my opponent, and then I go for an obvious Hydro Cannon here, but my opponent goes ahead and double shields their Altaria here. I'm gonna shield here myself. I should be able to reach an Ice Beam on Altaria. I just have to watch for a catch, which my opponent tried. They bring that Dunsparce in, go for that Drill Run, but I survive, and then I am going to be able to go for an Ice Beam immediately, so my opponent goes ahead and top left. Moving on to the next match, we're up against a Chestnut on the lead, which is terrible for my backline, and my opponent swaps out immediately into a Drapion. I decide to stay in to go for a lunge. That way I can ensure that my Azu can win this switch, because I really need to get rid of this Drapion, and I cannot have that Chestnut aligned to my second water type. So after I see that they're running Aqua Tail, I am assuming that they don't have Sludge Bomb. I can safely bring in Azu, but they go ahead and swap back into that Chestnut. I'm able to land an Ice Beam. They let it go. They are in the yellow now, and I'm gonna let this Frenzy Plant go, let Azu go. I should be able to reach a lunge before my opponent can go for a move, but even if they went for a move, both of their moves are going to be very resisted, so I am fine. And my opponent's final Pokemon is going to be a Morpeko. Okay, at least I still have both of my shields left. I went ahead and shielded my opponent's first move. They went for that Aura Wheel immediately. Going to be able to go for another move, but they catch it on their really low HP Drapion. Let's see how this goes. I don't think this is going to go very well for me. Yeah, I just have my Feraligatr left, and my opponent has a lot of energy on this Morpeko. They are going to be able to reach another Aura Wheel, and they have a shield left, so I'm going to go ahead and top left. GG's to our opponent. Surprising how many Morpekos I am seeing people run, but I mean, it's a fun Pokemon, so it's expected. Can you blame them? But anyways, moving on to the next battle, we're going to be up against a Pangoro on the lead. I go for a Trailblaze here, and maybe I should have gone for a lunge, but my opponent goes for a Night Slash, which kind of hurts our Ariados. Yeah, so I'm just buffing my attack with these Trailblazes, and I think I'm gonna let the next Night Slash go. I should be able to survive, but they will be able to make it to another one, so I have to throw another move. They even get a boost, which is really unfortunate for me, and my opponent's final two Pokemon are going to be Gastrodon and Clodsire. I swapped out immediately into my Azu, and we brought out the Clodsire. At least I'm going to be able to go for these Ice Beams against this Clodsire, and my opponent is going to have to throw another move if they don't want me to reach another Ice Beam, so they go for a Sludge Bomb, and I'm just hoping that my Feraligatr is going to be able to take this win for us. Let's hope. I'm able to catch the Sludge Bomb on my 1 HP Ariados, which is really good, and save all that energy on Feraligatr. Now it's going to be Feraligatr up against a full health Gastrodon with 2 shields. Okay, I go for 2 Hydro Cannons, take both of my opponent's shields. I'm gonna have to start shielding here as well, and I think, yeah, I'm gonna go for another Hydro Cannon here. I need to come out of this matchup with a little bit of energy if I wanna reach a Hydro Cannon on Clodsire, and this was getting super close, but I actually do manage to reach that Hydro Cannon, take the Clodsire out, and we're elo to take that win. GG's to our opponent. That is going to be another 3-2, getting us to a new high of 2,970 elo. I'm only 30 points away from Legend, but you guys know how this game is. When you start winning, it brings you down, unfortunately, and we end up losing the next 2 sets. We go 2-3 in both of them, so not too bad. We don't lose too many points. And because I didn't drop too much, I'm still 1-5-0 away from Legend. So, as you guessed it, we need a 5-0 in this next set to reach Legend. And I really, really wanted it, and I got it. The last game in the set was the most intense game you guys are going to see. But the next team we are going to use is Dunsparce on the lead, Shadow Drifblim in the back, and Shadow Jumpluff. I completely forgot how good Shadow Jumpluff is. I don't know why I haven't been using it. It is so good in the Open Great League right now. As you can see, I go ahead and take a Shadow Marowak out, and I'm even able to leave that matchup with energy to go for 2 Aerial Aces up against the Drifblim that my opponent has left. And it looks like I am going to be able to take this win because my opponent is going to have to throw their energy here up against our Jumpluff to take us out. And I am going to be able to farm them down with my Drifblim. So GG's to our opponent. We are able to take that first win, but that first win was pretty easy for us. The games do get progressively more difficult. If there is any team I would recommend for climbing from this video, it would definitely be this one. This was the most consistent and one of the strongest teams I got to use. Drifblim is very underrated at the moment. A lot of people don't want to run it because of how many ice types and how many Drapions are in the meta, but it's pretty good if you align it to those poison types or the ground types like the Mud Slap users. So this is a team I can highly recommend for you guys. Now moving on to the next match, we are up against a Drapion on the lead. I managed to take a shield from them with the drill run. Then they go for a crunch and get a defense drop on our Dunsparce, and they catch the drill run on Azu. This is not looking good for me. Their Drapion is still alive, and Drapion is going to be very good against my back two Pokemon. So I bring Jumpluff in against Azu, and I get super lucky that they're not running Ice Beam. I no-shield a Play Rough. I was fully expecting to let an Ice Beam go on my Jumpluff. I know I can survive one, but it ends up being Play Rough. We take the Azu out, and I even have some energy for this Drapion. I'm able to go for an Aerial Ace. And I think I'm going to bring in Dunsparce and take their energy, but they end up swapping out immediately into Chestnut, and Drifblim absolutely walls Chestnut. However, Chestnut's Frenzy Plants are really going to hurt our Drifblim. Unfortunately, we're able to go for an Icy Wind here, take my opponent's final shield, and I have to shield the next Frenzy Plant. Otherwise, it is going to be enough to take us out. But I'm able to reach another Icy Wind, take Chestnut out, and my opponent has to go for a move up against our Drifblim. So they are 1 HP now. If I could just go for one rollout. Oh, I remember this match. I think my opponent could have made it to another Aqua Tail, but I don't know what happens there. Maybe they lag and they're not able to throw their move, but I don't think I should have won that match. We get really, really lucky there. Now moving on to the next match, we're up against a Drifblim on the lead, which is a really good lead for me. However, my opponent swaps into their own Dunsparce, and my back line is entirely weak to this Pokemon. So I stay in with my Dunsparce, I weaken them a little bit with a Drill Run, and then I manage to catch the next Drill Run on my Jumpluff. And at this point, I just need to land one Energy Ball to take this Dunsparce out. However, they go ahead and invest a shield, and I know I can live a Rock Slide, so I'm gonna let it go. And then my opponent swaps back out into their Drifblim. Okay, I have a lot of energy. I can go for an Aerial Ace, which does a lot of damage to Shadow Drifblim, and then I will swap back out into my Dunsparce. I can take an Icy Wind. I have to go for a Rock Slide here, but I do manage to leave this matchup with a little bit of extra energy. That way, if they bring that Dunsparce back in, which they do, I should be able to go for a Drill Run here and weaken them. And thank goodness they go ahead and throw their energy. That way I can come in with my own Drifblim and go for a full farm down. Now my opponent doesn't have any shields left, and their final Pokemon is a Galarian Weezing. This Shadow Ball is gonna one-shot, and I still have a shield left. I can go for a full farm down up against his Dunsparce, shield their Rock Slide, take them out, and take that win. GG's to our opponent. Moving on to the next match, we're going to be up against a Clodsire on the lead, and Drifblim can do pretty well against this, especially if it's running Earthquake and Sludge Bomb. However, my Jumpluff is really going to struggle against Clodsire, so I am going to stay in with Dunsparce and try to weaken this as much as I can. I'm going to go ahead and shield the first Earthquake and go for another Drill Run. My opponent lets it go. They are in the red now, and then I can swap into my Drifblim. If they swap out, I can still go for an Aerial Ace on Jumpluff. They swap out into Moltres. This is going to get very tricky. I am able to go for an Icy Wind and take a shield from them, and then I reach another Icy Wind because my opponent tries to go for a full farm down. We're able to get that Moltres out of the way, which is really good for me. Otherwise, they would have been able to go for a Brave Bird against my Jumpluff and take my final shield. However, because we got that Moltres out of the way, my opponent's final Pokemon is a Malamar. And Jumpluff is going to do really well against the Malamar. We're able to take a foul play from them, and then when I go for that second aerial ace, they swap out into Clodsire, but not to catch the aerial ace. They have to shield it because their Clodsire has energy, and then I swap immediately into my Dunsparce. I'm able to take that Sledge Bomb on Dunsparce. Dunsparce takes Clodsire out, and then Dunsparce is even able to reach a Drill Run against Malamar to take Malamar out, and we're able to take that win. Alright guys, we have reached the final battle of the video, and this is the last win that I need for Legends. So at this point, I am freaking out and I'm shaking because I really need to win this match, but thank goodness my opponent lets the Drill Run go on their Drapion. I know my backline is a little bit weak to Drapion, so I'm glad that I could get that out of the way. I farmed them down with my Drifblim, and unfortunately for me, my opponent has their own Drifblim in the back. So I go for an Icy Wind to take a shield from them, and then I swap out into Jumpluff. I have to shield Icy Wind from them because that is going to be quadruple super effective against Jumpluff. And now here, all I have to do is reach 2 aerial aces, one to take my opponent's final shield, and the other to take their Drifblim out, but my opponent goes ahead and swaps into an extremely bulky Cresselia. They have a Cresselia left in the back, and at this point I'm thinking there is no way I am going to win this. I swap out into Drifblim because I wanted to clear the debuff on my Jumpluff. However, I managed to catch a Future Sight from them. They could have gone for a Grass Knot and still taken us out, but they go for that Future Sight, which is really good for me. We get rid of their energy, and then my Jumpluff is able to survive a Future Sight from their Cresselia. I go immediately for an aerial ace up against their Drifblim because I need to survive these Psycho Cuts from their Cresselia in order to reach an energy ball. We make it to that energy ball, and I'm actually able to take that win. That was super close. Such a tough match to end on, but we got the 5-0 that we need, and we make it to 3017 elo. That's going to be the end of our video. If you guys have made it this far, I know it's been a really long video. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate all the support you guys give me. And if you guys like my content, please consider subscribing, maybe leave a like. It helps me out so much. I try to upload as much as I can on this channel and bring you guys some of the best teams that I use in GBL. And I will see you guys in my next video. Enjoy your GBL weekends. Bye-bye.